on is our responsibility. So I just want to be clear that, I'm not planning to say, well, the agency recommended this. I mean, whatever's in there, we are 100% responsible for in the end of the day. I know that the agency, everybody sort of goes back to the agency, but it's really, at the end of the day, the legislation is clear that we're approving the plan, and it could not even resemble the plan that the agency put forward, or it could look similar.
And that, yep.
So the only, and I completely agree, the only thing we just need to be clear on is that we have to adhere to the same standards.
Yep.
And that's on section 8 here of this memo. That makes it clear, and the law inartfully makes that point, but actually in the Rule 3400 series, that point was actually crystallized, and it's in Rule 3440.6, subsection 2, and it very clearly states that by approving the Secretary's proposed statewide plan in an amended form under the same standards required for the Secretary's proposal.
Yep. Good point.
All right, so moving on just to that third page.
Sorry, Bill had it.
Oh, sorry, Bill.
I'll pass.
Okay, all right, for now. So on page 3, this is to the crux of the discussion, our future discussion. It talks about, except where it is not possible or practicable to create a preferred district that adhere to protections for tuition-paying districts, operating districts, or otherwise meets all aspects of Section 5. So this is where I think it's very important, and I do appreciate the agency pulling this language for us, because it is not possible or practicable to create a preferred structure. Then the proposal may also include alternative governance structures. It's a may also, as necessary, when as a supervisory union with member districts or a unified union school district with a smaller daily average, provided, however, that any proposed alternative governance structure shall be designed to ensure adherence to the protections of Section 4 and promote the purpose stated in the beginning of the section. So it's the thing that's not clear is about defining possible or practicable, and that's going to be our charge as a board. And the secretary was able to make their own decision, and that's where we have to really institute what is our definition of possible and practicable. I think possible is easier. The practicable is going to be more of the discussion. So also the legislature requires the state board to publish its order merging and realigning districts where necessary, which must adhere to provisions governing the Secretary's proposal. We are not at free rein to just create whatever we want and just use different proposals. We're using the same law. And the legislative restraints the state board's authority to include multi-district SUs in its plan. It says the state board shall approve the creation, expansion, or continuation of any supervisory union only if the board concludes that this alternative structure is the best means of meeting the five goals, in particular region. And again, this is where it stresses region. We are looking at bigger than one district. Ensures transparency and accountability for the member districts and the public at large. And the last point on this page, geographic isolation. So F46 mentions geographic isolation in connection with the state board's review of voluntary mergers under 16 and small school support grants. It does not require the state board to consider it when developing the statewide plan. So we've heard a lot about that. We are also had to be mindful of isolating different towns during the voluntary merger process. Any questions, comments, or clarifications needed for this third page?
Yes.
Yes, Bill.
We're going to have to define.
I don't think people can hear you.
We're going to have to define.
Push the
Is that
button.
on?
Sorry, Bill.
Let's turn it on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's this?
It's on now.
We're going to have to define what possible and practicable happens to mean in a consistent kind of way, but each of the circumstances are going to be different. So we're asking for constant rules that we'll have to agree on, but yet their application is going to vary tremendously. And there, I think, will be the rub.
Exactly. I think that's the hard part is again, the possible, when we start talking about that, is a lot easier because there's state law. And the practicable, That is where we can, I think, review, study, and analyze the secretary's plan on the choices they made to see whether we agree or disagree with those. And I think that's going to spark our discussion. Anything else for that third page? I think Bill's just defined what our work is going to be for most of the day. Okay, on to the fourth page of the
One
memo.
other thing,
Oh, yes.
geographic isolation, we defined that for small schools grants, but that does not necessarily carry over, right?
Exactly, and that's what it's stressing here, that it does not talk about that in the state plan. So it's asked for that in the previous section. So when we start looking at the law itself, it's definitely different sections and different process. And so for this process, it does not include anything for geographic isolation.
Oh, okay.
Okay, all right, the fourth page, this one talks about debt. And so one of the additions, which I think is the interesting part, is Act 46 did have an addition of Act 49, which changed some things. And Act 49 included debt among the considerations and what it identified as alternative structure guidance. So that was something included. Interesting to note, there was no changes to 46 or 49 this last legislative session. So, correct, Donna? That there were no...
Not this year.
Yeah, this year.
Same sessions.
Yeah, sorry, same session, but not this year. Okay, so in 49, that was what was added, was debt. So nothing else was added. Yeah.
And what's interesting, and I'll have a lot more to say on debt later on, but what's interesting on the debt is it actually only speaks to debt within the context of an alternative governance structure with respect to creating the fewest practicable number of districts within that AGS. It actually doesn't speak to debt, interestingly enough, in terms of preferred structure.
And that's where sometimes the law,
Yeah.
there's things that are in it, some things are left out. Voting history. Act 46, enacted in 2015, exempted 3 types of districts from potential mergers under the state plan, and Act 49 added the 4th. Neither act exempts districts that have voted against a proposed merger or districts that the state board to consider voting history as a factor when deciding whether to merge districts under the statewide plan. I think this gets back to Bill's. We have to decide if that's practicable. There's nothing in law preventing that. So that's where the practicable definition will be very important. We then have duties of districts that did not voluntarily merge. And Act 46 required the board, school board of the school that did not newly unified structure by the July 1st, 2017 to submit a Section 9 proposal. And again, some did not submit Section 9 proposals. This is where it gets even more confusing. Some did and some did not. And ones that did, what they were supposed to do first is a self-evaluation, then have regional meetings and have evidence of regional meetings. And then the Section 9 proposal itself, it needs to, A, propose to retain its current governance structure, to work with the districts to form a different governance structure, or to enter into another model of joint activity. And again, it demonstrates through references to enrollment projections, student to staff ratios, the comprehensive data collected pursuant of VSA 165, and otherwise how the proposal in subdivision A of this subdivision supports the district's or district's ability to meet or exceed each of these goals. And it also identifies direct actions proposed to continue to improve the performance in connection with the goals set forth in the Act. Okay, so that's the last page. Any questions, comments, or clarifications needed for that last section?
One quick question.
Bill?
How many did not develop a Section 9 proposal? You said there's very few, but what's the number?
Do we have a,
I can identify, excuse me.
Yeah.
I can identify that if you need that. One thing, however, is that even the ones that didn't present something in writing came in and had a conversation with the secretary, so I'm not quite sure what you consider to be a proposal or not a proposal, because they might have been discussing that proposal orally with the secretary as opposed to in writing.
So Donna, but the law is very clear about the process for submitting a proposal, and including there's a debt